But when it comes to an only child, it's like lean into those, I don't want to say quirks, but whatever they can use for their learning experience that helps them want to learn, do it. Like if it's sitting on top of their desk instead of sitting at their desk, as long as they know when they go to, Sunday school or whatever, that they know how to sit at a desk when the teacher says you need to sit at your desk. Just like leaning into that, because why not?
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Demi Learning Show. This is Gretchen Rowe, and I'm so excited today to welcome my friend and colleague, Katie Wolfe. Katie and I work for opposing math companies, but we are good friends. And I have to tell you that our goal in any situation is to make sure that the kids are well educated. And today, I want to have a very special conversation with Katie. We're going to talk about raising only children. I myself was an only child, and I thought it was a really special relationship, but I also wanted to be part of the Brady Bunch. So I had him. And so we're going to have a conversation today about what it's like to homeschool an only child, because it is a different experience. They don't have to stand in line and wait for your attention. And now I'm going to let Katie introduce herself, and then we'll get started.
All right. Thanks, Gretchen. I'm so excited to be here. So as Gretchen said, I have homeschooled an only child. I started him in pre-K, went all the way to 12th grade, and he just finished his freshman year in college, like literally Friday, finished his last class in college. So went from the very beginning to the very end. And would I change a few things? Yes. But was it absolutely positively the best experience and the best choice to make for him? Absolutely. It was phenomenal. And I won't say I felt all the way always confident that we'd produce what we did, but yeah, we our experience was phenomenal, and he turned out to be great. So it was
Yeah,
a lot of
well,
work,
he's a
but we're
pretty
glad we
special
did it.
guy. Let's be real. I think he's a pretty amazing. I can't call him a kid anymore. He's a grown up. This is
No,
crazy. But
I know. And yeah.
so let me tell you what kind of a child Katie raised. I'm just going to brag on him for a second.
Or what I was given. I don't know. Some of it, I mean, I'll take a little
No,
credit, but
okay, so it's a little bit of nature and nurture. But you sent him to a homeschool conference last year by himself
yes.
to represent Nicole, the math lady.
Yeah.
And he did a marvelous job. And I think it's really important for people to understand the goal of educating any child is to raise them to be independent, and that an 18-year-old could go step into that world and greet people and answer questions and be enticing in his own
Hmm.
personality says a whole lot about your journey. And I
Yeah.
think that's really cool.
It's true. And I mean, I will say that one of the, and I know I'm really good at going off into a roller coaster thing, but one of the things that like really did help with our journey is as I was working for Nicole the math lady, and I wanted help, traveling to conventions and stuff. So he would go with me because of course he was homeschooled. So he had a flexible schedule. And Nicole and I quickly learned having him in the booth was like so much more valuable than even me, because he was a student. And so he could talk about the product. But so it was great for the company, but for him, it was just like he, the confidence that he got with talking to strangers, and not even peers, but like, all, young middle-aged women. We always joke around, but he's really popular with the middle-aged women because he knows how to talk to them. But just the experience that he had and the confidence, and just was really helped him grow into part of what he is. So like finding those opportunities to plug your kid into places that will give them that. And it's like obviously totally thinking outside the box. I mean, he traveled to Cincinnati, Ohio to, the Great Homeschool Convention to work it by himself. That's not a normal, approach, but just finding those places to plug in your kid to grow and to mature and to just shine and get that confidence. Like he took a public speaking class this year as a freshman and loved every second of it. I would have hated it even today. Like even today, I would have been like, "Ooh," but he rocked that thing.
Well, there's something about raising kids amongst a wide variety of ages that makes it an entirely different experience. And,
Mhm.
so often my friends who public school their children or choose a more traditional educational experience would say, well, what about socialization? And, I don't think that's a thing. I think we didn't duct tape them and throw them in our closets. We
Well,
just
not
give
every
them the
day. No.
opportunity to, to learn on their own.
Yeah. I will say that is one caution that I give people who are thinking of homeschooling and only. And of course, I didn't go into this thinking I was going to homeschool and only. I went into it thinking he was just the first one, but he ended up being an only. But you don't need to worry about socialization, but you definitely need to make sure it's occurring. Like you can't just assume it's going to happen nearly as naturally as it would, of course, if you've got six siblings and cousins who live nearby or whatever, like a neighborhood with built-in friends right there. Like you definitely need to make sure it's happening. But I live in a small town in Hayes, Kansas, middle of Kansas. If there's enough socialization for us here, then you can really find it anywhere. So, but you definitely need to like make sure it's happening. Like you can't just assume it's going to happen naturally.
Well, and I also think the other side of that coin is it's not just do you get to hang out with other people, but it's teaching them how to hang out with other people.
Yes, exactly. That's really good. Like I we didn't have a co-op when we started homeschooling. So after a few years, a few friends and I started one. And because it's a smallish town, like, our co-op was like all ages all together. Basically, we were able to like take preschoolers into one section or whatever. But like, so David, my son, was like a 7-year-old would be like paired up with a 15-year-old for some art project. And I remember him breaking down one time because she was giving him directions on what to do and it's not what he wanted to do. And like the teacher who was in charge, like, was like, "Do you want to like step in, Katie?" And I'm like, "No, I want him to figure it out." Like, I mean, she wasn't doing anything inappropriate. She was just being a 15-year-old girl giving her side of it. And he needed to find his way to be able to do that. So and that's what I love about homeschooling in a co-op situation with kids is like putting him in those situations, but you're there, like you're there to observe and to understand, or you've got friends who are observing to understand so that they're not completely on their own when they come home and they're upset and you don't know why or whatever. But like being able to just kind of monitor that from the outskirts a little bit. But they need to be able to figure out how to work with other people. Having you guide them is a phenomenal option instead of just throwing them to a classroom to have them figure it out. So but again, you have to like make sure you're getting them in those situations because it would be easy fairly to raise and homeschool an only child and come out with a very narrow-minded, selfish, you know uh self-absorbed person. So definitely like make you
Katie, did
find those
you all make
options.
the decision to homeschool before you began? I mean, I'm an inadvertent homeschooler. I didn't intend to homeschool, but here
So
I
that's a
was.
good question. I was a public school teacher before I had David. And I taught first grade. So and loved, loved, loved it. But then as soon as I had him, I was like, yeah, no more of that. I just want to be at home. And so when he got to the preschool age and my friends, his peers were sending their kids off to preschool, I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. I like having them around. Like we're having so much fun, especially because that was like my whole wheelhouse, just turning everything into a learning opportunity and just reading everything available and whatever. So, kept him home for preschool and then kindergarten and then first grade. And my husband, who's a college professor, was like, well, let's take it year by year and see, obviously you're confident doing it at this level, but we'll see what happens middle school or whatever. And we never looked back. I mean, we did evaluate it, from time to time. And that's actually how I ended up working for Nicole Math Lady because math was what threw me for a loop. Um, so like there's times to, evaluate things, but didn't go into it that way, but it's what we chose to do and I never once contemplated putting him in the classroom.
Was it a different experience to go from being a classroom teacher to I mean, is that a mo I some moms tell me that shift is really hard to do.
Yes. So I had my like when we started schooling, I was so excited, as was he, because he's a little guy and super excited to do anything really. I literally created like our first day with a pocket chart of a schedule and like all this kind of stuff. And, I was, I mean, people say don't create school at home. I didn't just create school at home. I like created my own classroom exactly how I had it at home. Instead of 30 kids, though, I had one. It was a big learning curve for me. And I mean, one thing, and I also say this is another piece of like an homeschooling and only, is he would do things like started off doing things like he wanted to sit on top of his desk to read a book in a robot voice or whatever. And I'm like, oh, we can't do that. You need to sit down and read, and then I'm like, why? As long, I mean, I did fear, like, will he know when he shouldn't do that? Like when he's 12 and he's in a youth group, will he understand? But he did. So it's like allowing that creativity and that flexibility, which one you can't obviously do in the classroom with 30 kids. And you probably necessarily may not be able to do that when you've got even 3 kids, because you've got, two over there that are trying to do physics, and you've got, 7-year-old over here trying to read in a robot voice. That may not work. But when it comes to an only child, it's like lean into those, I don't want to say quirks, but whatever they can use for their learning experience that helps them want to
Sure.
learn, do it. Like if it's sitting on top of their desk instead of sitting at their desk, as long as they know when they go to, Sunday school or whatever, that they know how to sit at a desk when the teacher says you need to sit at your desk, right? Like we don't want to create rebels, but just like leaning into that, because why not? Like it told like or it's like he would like do like a connect the like the letters, like the letter to a picture or whatever, and instead of like drawing a straight line, he'd go blah, 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 and then do it. And I'm like, oh, we can't do it that way because I'll never know what you're connecting. And then I'm like, it's one kid. And he loved it that way, so why not? Was he able to take the ACT later and fill in the bubbles? Yes, he was.
I think that's so important, Katie, because what you're doing is you're giving parents permission. I mean, there's a lot of pressure in homeschooling, but when you're homeschooling one child, the pressure I think is greater.
It is, because everything everything that that child has learned has come solely from you. I mean, more or less, right? Like in your control of some degree, not learning it from a sibling, not picking it up from here, picking it from there. It's all coming from you. It's by your design. And you really, homeschoolers can have a bad rap. I mean, we all understand that, about, creating a unusual person, or I don't know what word to use, but somebody who doesn't fit into society, and that's a whole different conversation. But like, and only children in themselves can struggle in that, whether they're homeschooled or not, right, Gretchen? You would probably
Mhm.
attest to that.
Yeah.
And so having this only child who's only homeschooled with only one person, and just there is definitely a lot to maneuver, or really not to maneuver, just to plan ahead and to be aware of. And yes, there's a lot of pressure to, to produce something great, especially if you've got I have lots of friends with 6, 7, 8 kids, and they're like, that's gotta be easy, Katie. And I'm like, yeah, except I'm the only one there to play the games and to do, it's like it's a 24/7 thing when you've got one person. So, there's pros and cons, obviously.
As he grew academically, did you follow him?
When we started, I was so worried about socialization that I took every opportunity that came my way for us to socialize. I was confident in the early years of like I knew I would get the academics done, because it was like so natural to me, that the reading and the writing and the beginning math and stuff. So we socialized so much, like everything that came up. And if it didn't come up, I created it. It was like, and that it wasn't just, wasted socialization. It was, lots of fun field trips and, classroom like parties, just all that kind of stuff. But as we got older, I was like, whoa, I think we need to step back from socialization, because we've got like middle school, more academics, need to focus on things that are now outside of my comfort zone, that I need to like figure out, spend more time on myself, or outsource, like, need to take those academics, spend more direct time on that. Um, and so then I kind of made the mistake of like cutting off too much socialization. So that balance is hard. But yes, in terms of what he was interested in, obviously, you know, there were things he had to learn. But when it came to any way that we could lean into his interests, we did, which was all ants, all animals, animals from the beginning of time all the way until like, today. Like he wants to go into vet school. So it's like, um, we, he got to choose the vast majority of books that he read. They were animals, nonfiction, whatever, whatever. He would like when he was old enough to like volunteer in town, he volunteered at the this museum that has like behind the scenes animal encounters and so stuff like that. And it was like all we could pour so much into his interests because we had the time, and you can also start a lot of his science. We spent extra money on science courses because that's what he wanted to go into. And so like we didn't spend we spent extra money like on live science classes so that I was making sure that he was getting exactly what he needed for that. So yeah, we put a lot into like his interest, obviously also making sure that he could do all the other things that he needed to do. But yeah, which is so easy with one, much easier with one than six.
I'm so impressed that you created a co-op. In that co-op experience, tell me a little bit about, how you were able to balance your time, because when you have an only child, there's that expectation that you will be there for all the things. So how did you make running a co-op work?
It was smallish, and I was, a teacher by training, so I wanted to teach classes for co-op and stuff, and so I mean, I was busy, but that part wasn't hard. It got harder as he got older, and I wanted to focus more on academic, like co-op classes. The ones that we would do, they would be kind of like supplemental to science. Like we weren't learning like all of physics. We were learning, a piece of physics throughout the semester or whatever. So as we got more towards like middle school and high school, or really just middle school, when we got there, I was like, I feel like we need to like take the time that I would have put into that, or we would have put into that to a much more serious course. And I mean, some of the co-op pushed back a little bit. They're, oh, but we need you to teach our kids this. And I'm like, yeah, no, you can teach, you've got these others are coming up. So I would say that is something also that happened to me a lot, co-op or not, is that I love I mean, I have friends. I love friends. I love having friends. I love my son having friends. I'm a very social person in that sense. And I love to help. So was I always the go-to person, if the mom of six needed a babysitter? Yes. You know what I mean? And so it's like you do need to learn to say no to protect your time, because your responsibility literally is your one student. It is not that the six of that mom over there. Like, I mean, help them as much as you can, whatever. But your responsibility is that one that's in front of you. And believe it or not, there's a time limit on how much you actually have them at home. I mean, there is. Mine's gone. So it goes away.
So, Katie, we had so many wonderful questions. I just have to ask you this one. On a 6-year-old who needs to be challenged to stay focused, how did you measure, okay, I'm challenging you, but I'm not pushing you to the edge? How do you do that?
That's a good, yeah, that's a good question because again, when you've got one, you can focus so much on that one. So it would be easy to push too hard because you're like, oh, I've got all the time and energy. We can, have a rocket scientist at 8. Um, but at the same time, understanding, what your 6-year-old needs. I would say I would really just say looking at progress, like just continuing to progress in each of those subjects, whatever it may be. I made the ridiculous mistake, and this would be one of my things I would love to redo as a homeschool mom. Like, I literally have a master's in education, and I made this mistake. So, kid, David, he could read between 3 and 4. Did I teach it to him? No. It's just a natural thing. He picked things up, wanted to read from the very beginning. So, did I lean into it? Yes. But I mean, it was mostly just his own intuition, whatever. So, I made the brilliant decision that if he could do that, he could do everything at 4 years old. So we were trying to write, we were trying to do math, we were trying to do, whatever. And when it came to writing for him, it was excruciating. And I was like, but why? You can read these things, you should be able to write these things. And of course, I know that's not the case. And also, he had a 4-year old hand, so like things like that, like lean into their interest, but also like their skills. Like, yes, if you've got a strong reader, push, don't shove, but push them along because they can be reading at a fifth grade level and writing at a kindergarten level or whatever it is, which is true for any homeschooler, any student anywhere. But with a first or with an only child, definitely watch out for that because I really thought, oh, we're going to be, graduating from high school when we're 8. I'm, yes, watch out for them being behind in things. I mean, that's also a whole nother discussion. I'm sure Gretchen's had a lot of episodes on that.
But you said you had an interesting take on this yesterday. Can you talk a little bit about that?
And I say this mostly when it comes to working for Nicole, the math lady. I'm not one who says there's no behind in homeschool. People tend to say that, but I don't believe that's the case. Now, do I think that you're behind if you can't read when you're 8? No, not at all. There's a lot of things it needs the time, it needs you know, the opportunity, whatever that child needs. But if they're, I don't know, 15 and they don't know their times tables, they're behind. They can get caught up easily on that. But it's like if they're struggling in something, you're trying to graduate them and they don't know how to, I don't know, I don't know, I can't
I
think of an
think the
example.
conversation we were having yesterday was a child who is 16 years old and hasn't taken high school mathematics yet.
Yes,
That's a
yes, which is what
problem. It's an
yeah,
issue.
that is a problem, and you can't there's definitely a point where they're behind. Obviously, look at what it is that they wanna get out of life, and I mean, I had a huge moment when I was planning his middle school and high school, and again, this is how I ended up with Nicole the math lady, was because I could not find the right math program for him, and so I kept switching math. Don't do that. Gretchen and I'll tell you not to do that. So I kept switching math programs around, and again, probably part of that was because he was an only child. I was, like, hyper focused on, "Oh, this one would be good for him. This one would be good for him." I wasn't making him do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, he wasn't driving the train, but I was letting him like, I was allowing him to drive the train, although he wasn't trying to, is that makes sense.
Right.
Um,
Sure.
so by the time he was in middle school and I sat down to, like, he was in the middle of middle school and I, like, could see I had 5 years left of his education, and I thought, "Oh my word, this boy wants to go into science. If we don't figure this out now, we are in trouble. He is behind in math, and if he wants to do this, we've got to do this." And so that was a really, big moment for me in realizing, like, there is a behind. If you've got this goal, I only 5 years to get him there. I mean, it's his goal, not mine. 5 years to get him there. He needed to get there. Um, so obviously, again, do it at their listen to them and watch what they can do and why they're pushing back on something. Like, my son would push back on writing not because he didn't have the thoughts but because it hurt his hand. You know what I mean? It's like things like that, and just look for progress, and again, push but don't shove, and find their interests, because again, with an only child, if you can make everything about how to train your dragon for a month, do it.
I'm imagining your house is overflowing with animals. Is that true?
Yes, yes, I should, yes, real ones and stuffed ones.
Yeah, well, this is how we ended up with pet rats in the family. I had a similar situation. I still
Yeah.
have pet rats here in my office, but it's, you kind of chase their interests a little bit.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. No, we had a conversation this weekend about he has a bearded dragon that we have downstairs, and I was like, "You can't have it in the dorm. Do you think we should rehome it?" And he's like, "Oh, no, it's much better off with you." Like, "Okay."
I had a list of, "I am not doing these things." A bearded dragon might have been on that list at one
No,
point in time.
he loves to snuggle, he's so cool. No snakes, though.
So, and I thought this was a really interesting question. How do you find time for you?
I mean, I'll be honest, I was never very good at that, and I'm certainly not good at that now. I will One of the things that turned out to be an amazing, situation for us is that my best friend that I met through our co-op has an only child, a boy. But she didn't homeschool him at first, but she started when he was like 3rd grade, and that's when we met her and stuff. And David and Raleigh are still to this day best of friends. Best of friends. They are opposites in so many ways, but they're best of friends. So having a close friend is was so important, and, like, and also he learned a lot of things from Raleigh that we were never gonna teach him. So, we're always very, very grateful for things that Raleigh taught him. Seriously, I'm not kidding, like, things that, anyway, that peers can share. But with my best friend, because she also understood the exact scenario of, like, all the time goes to your kid. So we were very good about, swapping, like, play dates and, like, whatever, so that you got free time. But I mean, I'm not very good at that. You definitely need to be, I would, you know, if I could go back, I would probably set up different, more of a pattern, like trying to have some kind of structured, like, this is my time, you go do that. I mean, we did some of that, like, go read on your own. But then, of course, instead of like me doing something relaxing, I was, I don't know, cooking
You
dinner
were
or plowing.
probably planning the next thing you were gonna do together. This question I thought was really interesting. What happened when he became a teenager and his opinions started to differ from yours? Whether it be academic or social? How'd you handle that?
I will say I think David's a little unusual. He's always just been a very, very, very good kid. Didn't argue, didn't push back a lot. At some point, he and his father, he started to push back on his father more. I think just the man stuff. We just had this big discussion yesterday about something, a very big topic. And he's like, well, now that I've, in college, I met somebody who said this, or I learned this, or whatever. And he's like, and so I'm like rethinking this. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. We did try to present a variety of options. Of course, he knew how, not options, a variety of views. He knew what we thought on all these topics, or what his father thought on all these topics, and what the book said on all these topics. So we really did try to present a variety. When he was younger, I was much more about, like, this is what the answer is for this, this, and this. And he didn't push back then. Now, if I was to do that, he would definitely push back because he's forming his own opinions. But he does it very respectfully. But also, I've learned a tremendous amount from him, because he's always been open to other people and to other people's opinions. So, like, he knew what, for a long time, obviously, it was just me giving him everything. But then I started outsourcing to different, teachers and classes and whatever. And so he's always been very open, and very open with his peers, and just people that he encounters anywhere, on their views and opinions, not influence, just open to what they're having to say. Like, and so he then takes that and forms his own opinion. He's been like that for years. But he does it very respectfully when he, wants to discuss something that you may not agree with. So I mean, I love it. Like, I mean, that's what we wanted to produce.
He didn't go to college in Hayes either.
No,
How did
no.
how did that situation unfold?
He has a very clear idea of what he wanted to do. And so there were like 6 schools that he wanted to consider, like the 6 top schools in this field. He applied to them all, got into all of them, which I will say we expected he would get into like 4 of them. The other 2 were like, I don't know if that's going to work, but it did. So, you know, it was great. And then he started visiting him, and he chose the University of Montana, which is not close, but it's a perfect fit for him. And I mean, was it hard when he went? Yes. And here's, my friends laugh at me, because this is what I wanted to make, was this independent person who could go off and do his own things. And that's what I did. I'm like, that hurts. Like, he literally drove himself to college, didn't want us to like take him. He like literally left 10 days early and did like a tour of zoos and national parks along the way, packed up his car, and he's like, bye.
But you're still here. I do remember that was hard last summer, but you're still here, so
Yes. Yeah. No, yeah. No. And he came up and surprised me for Mother's Day. I was visiting my mom, and he lives 3 hours from where she is. And so I got to see him, and yeah, he's thriving, absolutely thriving. And so people ask me, they're like, well, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing great, because he's thriving. It wasn't easy, that this first few weeks and months of like quietness and all that kind of stuff. But I travel for work a lot. So I also feel like out there it's different. And I kind of can stop in and see him too on my travels. So
how has this year been now that he's gone? The transition for you, uh, like, you don't have obligations on the daily. Uh, I suspect that would have to be hard because it's gotta be a huge paradigm shift.
It is, but I will say, and he's very quick to remind me on this as well, that, like, by the time he was a sophomore, junior, I wasn't doing a lot of the teaching anymore. Like, I was in charge of making sure he was getting what he needed, but, like, we definitely outsourced things. He did, Nicole, the math lady for math, so I knew what he was doing. And then he started doing dual enrollment classes and stuff. So I think that was actually a really, now that I look back on it, I'm like, that was a really good, like, segue into it. Like, it, like, gently, you know what I mean? Like, so that was a huge piece of it. Plus, like, by his senior year, he was doing dual enrollment classes. He was traveling an hour and a half almost every day to the zoo where he was, I'm saying zoo. It is a zoo. Oh, I did that. A zoo that's an hour and a half away that he volunteered at and stuff like that. So he, you know, I wasn't doing a lot for him by then. So in terms of, like, daily school. So, but I mean, it was definitely a change. Like, but he also FaceTimes a lot. So that's fabulous. So I feel like I get to see him. So
Well, that's pretty awesome. In the process of his growing up, did it feel like things went too quickly?
yes. Yeah. I mean, I think everyone says that though, don't they? Like, I don't know where the time went. Like, literally. I was just texting my best friend who, her son is in the same boat, and he's like getting an apartment for the summer. And my son's not coming home for the summer at all. He has no interest in coming home for the summer. I know, right? Like, he came home for Christmas and was like, "Why is Christmas break so long?"
So how do you not take that personally?
Oh, because, well, first of all, because I don't doubt at all that he loves me immensely. And he misses his family and he misses his dog a lot. But he's so excited about what's ahead of him, so excited, and he wants to just get out there and do it, and including making mistakes. It's like his roommate this semester or this year, his roommate, his mom would call him, like, I don't know if it was every day, but almost every day to wake him up so he was in time for classes. And David's like, "Mom, if you even think about doing that," and I'm like, "What if you miss a class?" And he's like, I'll miss it. Like, it is what it is. And so, um, I don't know. Like, I take it personally. No, I actually take it as a, I don't say compliment because it's not like I made it happen, but it's, I guess, proof that all the, time, effort, and energy that went into it has resulted in what we wanted it to be. I mean, did we want him living in our basement at 30? No. I mean, it's like,
Right. Right. No, you don't need to sit on the sofa and eat Cheetos, right? Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that that does make a difference. So, I want you to think back now, um, you had 18 years with him. Where were the tough transitions? Where was it where did you have to renegotiate your thought process?
that's a good question. Middle school. I'm sure that's not a surprise to anybody. Um, Definitely middle school. And it
And
had
was
to do,
that
like,
you expecting, or was that him behaving differently than you anticipated?
no, again, he didn't misbehave. It wasn't that. Um, it was like social stuff. Like, I wanted him to keep doing certain social things so that he was not, you know, becoming, a hermit. Um, but he, like, didn't necessarily love the youth group anymore. He was, kind of, he just said yesterday, he's like, I was afraid of girls. Like, just that awkward time, right? And he literally could not handle being around girls unless he had Raleigh by his side. You know what I mean? It's like, there were just some awkward, preteen, early teen years, which are obviously totally normal. Um, I do think, I mean, that was a hard part, only in the sense that it's like I knew, you know, letting him not do any of that social stuff was not the answer because he needed to, but knowing what that balance was a little bit of a struggle. And the funny thing is like, I don't know, 2 months ago or something, he said, "I think I came to the realization that I probably should have done more when I was in middle school and high school social wise." He's like, "But I didn't want to." And I'm like, "I know." And he's like, "I think you should have made me." He recognizes that probably more of that would have, helped him have more confidence. Because the one thing in college so far that he has not struggled with, but had tried to find the balance with, again, I think everybody does this every day. I do, is like figuring out how much energy to put into school versus social. And so like that's he's struggling and he has struggled just throughout the years, like finding that balance because again, he was like, "Oh my gosh, look at all these great people and fun things to do." And obviously college there's like a bazillion options. He's like signing up for every club and every group. And, he's like going skiing one weekend and kayaking the next. And so it's like finding that balance because he also wanted to, do really well in school and he takes his schooling very seriously. And so that was a struggle. So I don't know if I would have done anything different in that situation. And I don't think that there was anything unusual about it. Like when he hit that those middle school years. But obviously if he'd been in school, that would have been forced on him. And maybe we should have, pushed him some more, but I don't know.
But you know what? It's you're playing the long game. So you
Yes,
don't
totally the
always
feeling.
know, um, what is gonna work. I remember saying to my youngest, who is like David, very outgoing, very willing to talk to people he doesn't know. He could probably sell ice cubes to an Eskimo. But, he I said to him, "When you hit middle school, you're gonna wake up one day and you're gonna think I'm a pain in your neck. And when it happens, I don't want you to feel guilty because it's part of growing up." And we were on a trip after his graduation, and he was looking down. We're actually standing looking at Mesa Verde in Colorado, and we're looking across the canyon at the mesa, and he's looking down at the ground, and I said, "What are you thinking?" And he said, "Oh," he said, "I'm just thinking, you know what? I never decided you were a pain in my neck."
Yeah. And do you, I think a lot of that is the personality, it's the relationship. He makes fun of me and teases me about, things now that like I not embarrass him, about or whatever. But like it's the relationship we have is so amazing that, yeah, we tease each other back and forth on things like that. But um I've I will continue to be the person so far of who he comes to and tells things to and asks things of. So I will say the day that he like outgrew me and you're like looking up at a 12-year-old, but that's true for any kid, having kids in general. But I don't know. It is hard to look at this 6 foot, he's 6'2" with a full beard and stuff. And I'm like, you're just my boy. But
Yeah, well, it is hard. It's hard to watch them grow and change, and it's exciting, but it's a little
as
bittersweet too.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
so
So
so what now, for me, with my youngest, because he was so many years younger, it was like having an only. So he was kind of my buddy. We palled around together, we did things together, and when he reached the age of driving and having
uh-huh.
a car and see a mom,
Yeah,
that was hard for me. How was that
yeah.
for you?
So for me, it was mostly actually work related. Like he literally would go on all my Nicole the Math Lady trips with me, which took up, a ton of my time. And we had so much fun doing it. Like everywhere we went to the zoo and we like just made so much fun of it. And he carried all the heavy things. So it was fabulous. Absolutely loved it. Got to see places I'd never see. But same thing, when he got to the point, he was like, oh, really? I don't not that he had to go before, but he's like, "Oh," and he loved making the money. I mean, don't get me wrong, he loved doing it. But then he was like, "Oh, well, I have this or I could do this. I think I'm gonna do this instead." And I'm like, "Okay." So that definitely was a shift. Not just because I was like, "Oh, he had a girlfriend like his last year in high school and wanted to, go do things over there with other people." And I'm like schlepping my own bags. No, I'm kidding. It definitely was a piece. Like I will never forget the first zoo I went to with one of my coworkers, like Gretchen would be a coworker, on at a convention. I was at a zoo, we were in the gift shop and I started crying because David had never been not to the zoo with me. And she's like, "What is wrong with you?" Life has changed. So yeah, it's hard because especially because you get to make these bonds in these traditions and stuff that are so tight when you, especially when you have one or just one left at home and you're homeschooling them. But again, it's that goal, it's that goal that you have or that they have, but you have for them is to be able to go out there and make their own decisions and, thrive. So
Did you ever have a period of time where he was struggling? I know a lot of kids hit middle school and they're trying to figure out who they are in relation to the world. And there can be frustration, there can be depression, there can be anxiety. How
I'm
did
glad you
you
asked that because
navigate that?
there was a little bit of that for him, but actually more of that came just this freshman year in high school or in college. Even like in middle school, when he was struggling with that a little bit, like just, fitting in with the kids at youth group or baseball or whatever, trying, not being the best at baseball, trying to like find your, and like that kind of thing. Like, so there was a little bit of that, but I was there, to help with it, and he would talk to me and stuff. But it also wasn't a huge variety of people that were there. Do you know what I mean? It was in this freshman year where he's had a little bit of that. It's like trying, like he has a big group of friends that he has, that he's in the honors college. And so he has like this group of friends that came out of that, like a big cohort, and they're super, close. And they do tons of things together. But he's like, I don't have like, he's like, everybody likes me and I hang out with everybody and I like all of them, but I don't have like one close friend. And people are starting to like break off into, or they have a girlfriend or like whatever. And he's like, it's not that I mean, people like me, I get that, but it's like trying to find that and to have the confidence of, maybe he's not going to find that this year or whatever. So like that it's been then. And actually he at college, like on his own, he went and like started going to, found like a counselor like on the campus. And I think it was like something that was promoted to him, like as freshman or
Mhm.
whatever. It's like $20 a week. And he loves to talk to her and just like, and she's given him some insight on things that, that's really helped him that I couldn't have provided or whatever. And so it's like just being aware, and being open to talking about those things and listening, because now it's more about me listening unless he wants me to give advice, but it's like more about listening, and not saying, well, when I was in college this is the way it was, because that doesn't help. It's his
Right.
experience,
And
also
it is,
mine.
and college when you and I were in college is profoundly different than
Yeah,
it is
exactly,
today.
exactly. And I went to a small, private school. He's going to a big giant state school. I mean, yeah, totally different situations. And he's a different person. And so that, and just being aware, because I mean, I was definitely a little worried when like, there's like one weekend and he didn't call me at all, or I couldn't, like he wasn't doing anything. And I'm like, are you like hibernating in your room? I would say that happened more his freshman year in high
So how
school than it did
so how did
college.
you balance the independence with, uh, the mom stalker tendencies, I guess, is what I'm gonna say, how do
That
you
that is a good question, and
I mean, I laugh because my 27-year-old, I still have access to his bank account, and I said to him, "Don't you want me to get the heck out of your money?" And he goes, "Oh, no, I need somebody to make sure that
yeah,
my
to help,
money is
yeah, yeah. I mean,
accountable."
I think, like, I mean, right now, the whole family, like, my husband, me, and him all share, like our location and stuff like that. That was David's idea. Like, he did that before he left for college for all of us. So, um, I don't know. I think knowing, I mean, part of it is him, like knowing that he will say when he needs help, but also being, kind of being more aware of stuff. But I mean, when they go off to college, you don't get to check their grades. You don't get to check their health record. You know what I mean? It's like it's all. So work yourself up to that. And whether it's college or they're going off to do anything, it's like, it's unusual that you have, if your
Right.
kid wants to in their bank account, but it's like, that stuff all expires when they turn 18,
It
expires,
does.
what I mean?
It does. Well, it's to be fair, Duncan wanted me to be in his bank account because he hiked the Continental Divide Trail last year. He couldn't even access the internet
Oh, yeah, right,
most
yeah, that's what I
of the
mean. Yeah,
summer.
no, yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah,
so, like,
mom,
they
move money from my savings account to my checking account
right,
because I'm
yes,
about to go buy another pair of hiking
yes.
shoes.
Yeah, I'm not
So,
gonna be around, yes. So just but I mean, that part has been a little bit hard. I've done much better than my husband has with it, I'll say.
really,
Um, yes, I think
because
because
I would think, see, now here's my own supposition. I would think it would be harder for you than it would be for your husband.
because I was so close with David, like,
Right,
in the yes, the
right.
day-to-day stuff. I think the difference is I'm like David, like I'm still much closer with David, so he calls me with everything and whatever. Whereas my husband is like, no, I mean, he talks to David a lot too, but like he's not the one that gets the phone calls constantly or the FaceTimes constantly to know what's going on. And so he like does more like looks at his class schedule and is like, oh, I'm not sure that, or whatever. Like, so he's doing it from more of a not outsider because I'm not that, but from a different perspective.
Right. Maybe
So
he's
he's
just getting the end of the story instead of
yeah,
all the
yeah,
thinking in
and
the
also
middle of it.
yeah, also the fact that he's, I think, male to male, and, my husband, college professor, he's like, "Well, that's not the way I would do it," so, like, there's that piece of it, whereas, like, I'm mom, like, um, so, yeah, I think but there's definitely I mean, there's definitely balance. I've had to pull myself back from saying things like, you know, like he almost missed a deadline of getting a scholarship renewed. And I was like, dude, okay, that's where I draw the line, because he got some really good scholarships. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't just cost you, that costs us. So,
So
I'm gonna
do
help you remember.
in that process when he was a teenager, did you let him find his own scholarship opportunities? How deeply were you involved in that process?
That is a good question. So I I really don't have a lot I can share on that because it was just he everywhere he applied, he got which was all out of state, by the way. I knew out of state tuition was the thing. I just didn't really know how much of a thing it was. So everything was out of state. And so
Did you go and
most
visit those schools?
yeah, we didn't go to visit all of them because he fell in love with like the third one we went to. One of them was actually, or two of them were actually in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which is where he doesn't remember living there, but we used to live there. So those were very comfortable. That's actually one of the ones my husband taught at before we moved to Kansas. So we were very familiar with those. But so when he applied to all of them, almost all of them gave him some kind of like academic, like an automatic academic thing based on, scores and your transcript. And then other things, it was just like as he didn't do anything unusual. It was just as he was applying, it was like, do you want to apply for the honors college? Yes. Do you want to apply for this honors college scholarship? Well, sure. And then he actually got like the second highest one of that. So it's like he did not I have no advice on how to like seeking out scholarships at all other than, you know, make sure that you're looking for them as they come. I mean, like doing what they come as they come up. Um, and then he got like random scholarship like this year in the middle of the year. It's like, I don't know. We've been very blessed in that sense. I don't know. He's just and he's doing great, but it's not like, I don't know. I don't know how yeah. He's just been they're throwing money at him. No, they're not, but
Right. Well, that had to be hard when all the schools he was looking at were out of state too. And
yes.
I would assume that there was financial incentive for him to go to college in Hayes,
That
but they
so
didn't offer what he wanted.
no, there was like that was considered for probably 10 seconds because he did not like and again, my husband, because he's in the field, truly believes obviously that not that there's only one place you can go to get the education you want, but that there's definitely better places you can go to get what you want out of it. And so was totally behind the idea of, find the program that you want. And if you get into it, we'll try to find and make it work. Um, I will say he's also going to be an RA next year. So he's, his room and board is totally going to be taken care of. So that's a blessing. Yeah. But
Well, now if he qualified to become an RA, that proves that he is mature beyond his years because they don't lightly choose RA to do that.
yes. I would say the one thing that he's learned this year that that kind of took me back a little bit when he like verbalized it, but it's true, is like it's like I realized, and his, therapist helped him figure this out, but it's totally true. It's like I didn't get to be a once I hit middle school and high school, it's like I didn't get to just like be a goofy kid. He's like, everything I did, and I guess this is a warning to people, everything I did like outside of academics, I was doing kind of in like in a responsible format. Like I was volunteering for something. And then after the first year of volunteering there, I was like in charge of the new volunteers. And it was like I was like he would like he did like animal presentations at zoos and stuff. So it was always like educating and like, you know what I mean? Like it was never just goofing off and being, a dumb 14-year-old, you know,
Mm.
was like school. Do you know what I mean? It's like that stuff. And he like so he has struggled. Not that we want him doing that, but it's like he's like, I realize I don't, it's like that piece I don't know how to do when I'm in a group because I haven't, do you know what I mean? And so I'm like, that makes
He's a
sense.
little
That
mature beyond his years.
not, I mean, it's true. And so, which is, I mean, on the surface, it doesn't sound like a bad thing, but it's also, he's like, when I'm in a group and someone like cracks a joke, if I don't get it, which, a lot of times he doesn't because, he's had to learn things like that. But like, it's that piece. He's like, he doesn't know how to naturally be in just kind of a free flowing group. So
I can
um,
totally relate to that. I had the same
yeah.
challenges.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, even though I went to public school, all of my social engagements, all of my summers, all of my winter breaks and everything were just with adults.
Right.
And
Yes.
so there's an expectation of how you respond and how you behave. And so then I would get with a group of peers, and then I remember at his age thinking, "You all are so immature."
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because, I mean, who thought that that would be, a problem? Thankfully, being in the honors college, like everyone is aligned like academically, like they all want to do well. So that, they're not like, y- you know, wasting time, energy, and brain cells on, crazy stuff. But like, um, it's just, he's just like that natural, like they have movie nights together, like in the dorm and whatever. And he's like, it took him a while to like figure out like, and it sounds stupid, but like how to sit, which kind of circles back to he used to sit on top of his desk when he read a book. So maybe that it's not
Did you remind him of that?
no, no. I'm like, see, no. It's like it's just more like the relaxing in a group, I think is the thing. It's just like this relaxation because a lot of his social stuff was like a responsibility that he wanted. It wasn't that, he didn't want to do those things instead of just like relaxing. I think that's basically what it is.
Mhm.
So
Katie, I can't believe we're almost at the top of the hour. This has been such a fascinating conversation. If you had 3 pieces of advice to offer a mom of an only in the homeschooling journey, what would those 3 pieces of advice be?
things I've said already, but I will hit them. Like definitely be aware of socialization and find that balance. Obviously, I just made very clear it's not as easy as I thought it was, but I mean, just be aware of it. Don't be afraid to homeschool and only because the resources out there now are so vast. Enjoy it, but like lean into the interests because as a public school teacher, if I could have done that for every single one of my kids, they would all have been, reading off the charts because they were interested in what was being presented to them or whatever it was. So like just lean into those interests that your kids have, and have fun. Just enjoy it. Like, I mean, I loved it. Absolutely love it. Enjoy it. Enjoy the process.
It does seem like it went too quickly, doesn't it?
But on that note, I hope that he marries somebody that wants to have a Brady Bunch like you because I want lots of babies.
Well, it's really funny because until my mid-20s, I did not want children at all. I had no
Oh,
intention of having children. I'm really glad God knew my heart better then. than
Yeah,
I
of
do,
course.
but,
Yeah.
that's a whole different thing. Oh, and last question. How did you decide because Nicole is such a wonderful help to families, particularly those of us who don't appreciate teaching math. I think math is spelled with 4 letters for a reason. I know
Yeah,
I
me
work
too,
for a
which is
math
so funny because
company, but
nobody understands that when we're at conventions that, like,
no. But
we don't love math,
no, this is why we
right?
do what we do.
That's why I'm sitting here is because I don't love the math.
So how did you find your way to Nicole? Did you do a bunch of
I
research
didn't
or
sh well, I mean, I found my way to Nicole to use for David, and we started using her videos. It was like, "Oh, well, now we can do this." And by the way, he got a, like, 97% in calculus this semester, so she turned him around for math, got him all caught, like, it's phenomenal. But after using her for a year, she reached out to me and just said it was 2020 and her business blew up, as you can imagine. And just asked if I wanted to like help answer emails because she was too busy to answer emails. And I was like, I'll do anything because I love her so much. I didn't know the woman. She was a pre-recorded video in my living room every day for a year. I just loved her energy and just what how much she helped us. And now I work full time and or more than full time and travel the country and I absolutely love what we offer. Um, and I love my coworkers. It's so fun to go to conventions and hang out with people that you haven't seen for, a while. So
That's well, I think you do a tremendous job and, it's a big privilege at Demi Learning to know Nicole the math lady and Mr. D and we know that not every key fits every lock. And to be
absolutely.
able to collaborate with each other to find the best fit so that a child can be successful is just
Absolutely. I mean,
phenomenal.
that is the I mean, if there was one math program that fit every kid, school would not be what it is right now. Like it would not be, we could all send our kids to school with the same math and everyone would do well. And so absolutely positively. I spend more time working for Nicole the Math Lady talking about other math programs, I'm pretty sure, than I do. So yeah, absolutely positively. Find the right one that works.
Well, Katie, I want to say thank you for spending this time with me. We've gotten to know each other on the conference circuit. And when we were talking about homeschool experiences, of course, this started because I was just so impressed with David. I thought he was amazing. So then I started getting nosy. And so here we are today. So thank you so
Oh,
much for
thank you.
spending this time with me. I am grateful indeed for the conversation. And I know this is going to bless some parents, especially those parents who might be sitting on the fence going, maybe I shouldn't do this because my child is an only child.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I appreciate it profoundly that you are willing to allow us into your living rooms, and we don't take that lightly. It's a very special privilege to bring you these stories and these conversations because I think it enriches your journey. So thanks for joining us today, everyone. I really appreciate knowing you.
Thanks again for joining us. We're glad to be a part of your educational community. You can help us grow our community even more by rating, reviewing, and subscribing to the show wherever you may be hearing this. Don't forget that you can access the show notes and watch a recording at demilearning.com/show or on our YouTube channel. We'll see you again next time. Until then, keep building strong foundations for lifelong learning.